Finishing up simulation in Zion, Siv Ches. Shir number 17, I think it is. So we're continuing Atmana over here. And Siv Ches is a new type of Atmana. So till now we had Halacha, Atmana B'davar HaMoitziv Hevel, and Atmana B'davar She'einu Moitziv Hevel. Two types of Atmanas. So we know Atmana B'davar She'einu Moitziv Hevel is also only on Shabbos. Before Shabbos it's mutter. Atmana b'davar HaMoitziv Hevel is also even Erev Shabbos to leave it mutman b'davar HaMoitziv Hevel is also even if you do it Erev Shabbos, if it's Moitziv Hevel. In Siv Ches we have a new type of case where the bottom is Moitziv Hevel and on top you cover it with even Dvarim She'einu Moitziv Hevel that has a din like a Moitziv Hevel, and even Erev Shabbos it would be awesome. That's Siv Ches. So let's see it inside. So one more thing I want to speak out before we start Siv Ches is, if you remember in the Rishon Gimel, we had a machlokes the Mechaber and the Ramah. We had a machlokes whether or not the Mechaber says that if you put something just on top of a davar HaMoitziv Hevel, that's already called Mutmin B'davar HaMoitziv Hevel. It's already called Atman. Even though only the bottom is Moitziv Hevel, the Mechaber says that it's already called Davar HaMoitziv Hevel and it's Aser. Even though it's just sitting on a Davar HaMoitziv Hevel. The Ramah argued, and according to the Mechaber, the only way you can put something on a fire on Shabbos is if it's raised above the fire. But if it's sitting on the fire, even though it's Garuf V'Katum, it's called Tomun B'davar HaMoitziv Hevel. So the Mechaber says over here, which means that it's not sitting on the coals, it's raised a little bit above the coals. Still, if it's covered with clothing, even though the clothing are a Moitziv Hevel, machmas atzman, that's called Moitziv Hevel, and it's also because of the fire that's under it. If the clothing are not touching the Kedera, even though there's a fire under it, since you don't do derech Hatmana, it's mutter. So Michel basically says, Hatmana, you put it on top of a Moitziv Hevel, you cover it with begodim Einu Moitziv Hevel, it's awesome. The only way it's mutter is if the begodim aren't touching the Kedera. The clothing is a little bit away from the Kedera, it's avir between the clothing and the Kedera, then it is mutter, even though it's covering the pot, but it's not touching the pot, it's not called Atmana, and it's mutter. Hilkach, says the Mechaber, that was the halacha, and now I'm going to give you a practical case. Hilkach says the Mechaber, Heicha Shemamid Kedera Akira, by Kupach Shesh Begecholim, Ve'ein Shulei Kedera Noigem Begecholim, the Mechaber should say again, the bottom is not touching the Gecholim. Once it touches the Gecholim, it's already puzzle, it's already also according to the Mechaber. Shia Mekri, it's called Shia. Umutter al Pi Hadzracha, She's bottom is Rishon Gimel. It's mutter according to the ways we said in Rishon Gimel. If you put on top of the Kedera a wide kli, which is wider than the pot itself, so you put that thing over the pot, basically, there's going to be airspace now between the pot and the keli they put in the top of the pot. So you put a wide pot, kli rachov, she'ein gave it to the Kedera, and you put clothing on top of that kli, on that wide kli, mutter, it's mutter, why? The kivin ain't have begodim neisnin, the sunin, ela oisa kli rachav, since the clothing is only put on top of that kli rachav, she'ain negeh b'tzidei kedera, which is not touching the sides of the kedera, ain't kan atmana, it's not called atmana, and therefore it's mutter. V'chein, mutter laniach hakedera b'tanurim shalanu, and our tanurim, ayidei sheyitim b'toicha keteicha chaya. It's one second, for this v'chein. Basically, the Mechaber till now, he's a little bit meirich, says halacha, and it gives a practical case. Basically, all the Mechaber is saying is that if you put on top of something that's a Moitziv Hevel, and you cover the pot with a any moisiv hevel, it's called atmana b'davar ha-moisiv hevel, and it's awesome. Yeah.
What's the difference in this case that the Machaber matters in the case where back in configuration Gimel, there's a Spiro connected Gimel Sokei, with two pots on top of another, right?
Right.
Three shitas. And then we see that it's also the bottom part's empty, right? According to the sheet of the Prima.
Yeah.
So over here, why is it
Here's before Shabbos. He's doing it before Shabbos. They're talking about on Shabbos.
So if you're talking about putting a pot in the middle and putting a big pot that will cover the whole pot, and over that putting clothes.
That's mutter.
That's mutter.
That's mutter because it's airspace.
Yeah. Still airspace.
As long as you have airspace between the pot
and the pot,
then it's the same thing if you have clothing. If you put, we'll see soon. If you put a wide thing on top of the pot.
But although the pot is touching down to where the
no, according to the Mechaber, the pot cannot be touching the coals.
Okay.
Because once the pot is touching the coals, according to the Mechaber, that's called Hatmana B'Davar HaMoisiv Hevel. That's the Mechaber in Simulation of Gimel, and he speaks that again over here. It has to be the Ein Shulei HaKadeir Noige B'Gecholim. The bottom, the shulei is the bottom of the k'tera, cannot be touching the coals.
I'm not talking about the k'tera, the inside there, the one with the food. I'm talking about the big k'tera is touching the coals.
That doesn't make a difference. That doesn't make a difference.
So again, if it's touching the coals,
according to
pot, and the pot surrounding the pot, the cover surrounding it is not like airspace.
Right.
It's still called hatmana.
Yeah.
According to the Mechaber, it's called hatmana even if there's no pot on top of it. The fact that it's touching the coals is called hatmana. Even without that pot on top of their space. The Mechaber holds a simulation. Again, we had here speaks to that again. I'll get to it more in the next simulation of Ches. That if you put a pot on coals, it's aser. It's hatmana. There's no shia involved.
And the Ramah opposite that says even if it's touching the coals, it's okay as long as it's not fully covered up.
Right, and the Ramah holds, right. So there's two things that we're talking about basically. One thing we're talking about is the pot touching the coals. According to the Mechaber and the Ramah, according to the Mechaber, that's a tmana no matter what. According to the Ramah, it's shehiyah. You have the regular din of shehiyah. And another case talking about the Mechaber and the Ramah l'shetasam, whether it's a little bit above or even if it's lying on the coals, according to the Ramah, then you cover it on top with clothing. That's called the moisiv hevel, unless you have airspace. So it's two separate dinim. One din is whether it could touch the coals or not. Machlokes Mechaber and the Ramah. Another halacha, when it's mutter, whichever case is mutter, according to the Mechaber above, and according to the Ramah, even touching it, if you cover it with clothing, that's called hatmana and it's aser, unless there's airspace between the clothing and the pot.
It's actually the same concept because essentially it's whether you consider it a partial hatmana. Like the gecholim, you have the partial hatmana on the coals themselves.
Right.
The k'tera sits on that, so the bottom becomes hatmana according to the Mechaber.
Right.
Right.
But only according to the Mechaber is a partial hatmana. According to the Ramah, partial hatmana is not hatmana.
Correct, but therefore it doesn't even. There's no shaila according to the. According to the Ramah, there is no issue.
Unless it's covered with clothing on top.
Yeah.
Clothing with clothing on top.
Complete. Right.
Complete, yeah. We'll see how much. We'll get to that soon. How much? What does it mean completely covered? If it has to be totally covered, or a drop has to be could be open. We'll see. We'll get to that soon. But as of now, we're living completely covered. So that's the chiddush over here. That even though the top is davar she'ein moisiv hevel, if the bottom is moisiv hevel, it's also because there's a din like the whole thing is mutman b'davar moisiv hevel.
Rabbi, do you have to have airspace around all parts of the pot too? What if the thing, your clothing, touches the top of the pot, but there's airspace all around the sides of the pot?
That's fine. That's fine. That's good. That's kosher. That's good. Now we'll see soon. We'll see exactly when you see hatmana. What does hatmana mean? The whole pot has to be mutman. Let's say you have the pot's mutman. Forget about this case. Let's say we say any moisiv hevel or moisiv hevel. Let's say this is a case we have a moisiv hevel on the bottom, any moisiv hevel on top. Let's look at a regular hatmana. You want to be matting something on erev Shabbos or on Shabbos with dvarmish, any moisiv hevel. What's called hatmana? It has to be fully covered, or if the drop is open, it's really not called hatmana. But definitely everyone's going to agree that if only the top is mutman and the sides aren't, as airspace, that's definitely not called hatmana. That's definitely not called hatmana. V'chein muter laniach ha'gedeira b'tanurim shalanu. We're allowed to put a pot in our tanners. Ha'yidei sheyitim b'toich ha'chaticha chaya. They have to put a chaticha chaya because it's shehir. All we're doing now is we're saying it's not called hatmana, but shehir it's going to be. So therefore, v'chein muter laniach ha'gedeira b'tanurim shalanu. Ha'yidei sheyitim b'toich ha'chaticha chaya. Who should like to take a day in the gas begecholim? The Kedera cannot be touching the gecholim. The Mechaber L'Shetasa holds, once the pot is touching the gecholim, it's already atmala. Even though you're going to cover the top of the tanner of the oven with clothing, it's not atmana. It's a little bit of a riches here in the Mechaber, but it basically is saying the same thing over and over again, that if it's airspace, then it's not called atmana.
But couldn't the Mechaber have also said Katika Chaya Bagam Mitzamit Mevasha Potzrava Mitzamit Barala?
Yeah, Nachnami.
Could have said either. There's nothing absolutely specific about Chaya that he could exclude every other case.
Right.
Because he could also say
Nachnami. He could have Mitzamit Barala. Nachnami. Yeah, he basically threw in a case of that shehiyah would be mutter without gar for cotton. So we threw in one case of chadicha chaya. The same thing would be if it's mistamik v'rala, then shehiyah is mutter without gar for cotton. We have to remember, this oven is not gar for cotton.
In the modern day equivalent, when things about to say are ovens,
right.
If a pot is actually on the element, that would be considered equivalent to on the gecholim.
Yes.
And on the racks would be there's
on the racks
airspace around it.
Right. On the racks would be a din like a Mechaber would be fine.
Right.
Correct.
Which end up being shia.
End up being shia.
Right.
You have to have din shia.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Right, but according to the Mechaber, if you put it onto the stove top,
we'll get to that soon.
Right, that's on the gecholim.
Right, we'll get to that soon. We spoke out over.
Hatmana becomes a.
Right, we spoke in relation to Gimel. According to Mechaber, you can never put a pot on a blech.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You put a pot on a blech. It's very cold. It's mitzvah hevel the blech.
It's called hatmana.
It's called hatmana, but not mitzvah hevel. Because as long as the bottom is touching the fire, you run into a problem. So the Sfardim have a big issue. You can't keep a pot on a blech. You can't keep a pot on a platter. Right, what are you going to do about it? We'll get to it at the end of the year, hopefully. But as of now, the Sfardim have a big issue, because that's called putting it on top of the gecholim. If it's resting on the gecholim, it's called hatmana. Hatmana is asur. No heterim for hatmana. That's what we pass, right? That was Siv Zayin. Hatmana is same din as but we pass that hatmana is asur. Everything is asur in hatmana. So if it's called hatmana, then you cannot leave a pot on top of a blech.
But that's when it's covered all the way around.
No, even if it's not covered.
Just by touching the...
So I was saying before, there's two things over here.
Yeah. Partial hatmana.
Just by touching the...
Yeah, that's one thing we have to remember. The Mechaber holds, you put a pot on gecholim, it's called hatmana. It's asur. Here, Siv Ches, the Mechaber said a few times, we're talking about in a case where there's no problem of hatmana, meaning it's not touching the gecholim, it's higher up, so therefore it's not hatmana the way it is. You put clothing on top of it, now it becomes hatmana. That's what the Mechaber stresses it a few times. It has to be talking about, according to the Mechaber, where the shulei kedera are not touching the gecholim. If the bottom of the pot is touching the gecholim, according to the Mechaber, right away it's called hatmana. So the Ramah is going to argue that. He's going to say this case can be talking about even if the pot is touching the coals, it's mutter, unless you put clothing on top of it and it covers the whole pot. Right? That's the Mechaber of the Ramah. If you look in the Ramah, in the Magen Avraham Siv Katan Yud Ches, Noigim Megecholim, right away he says, Ol Divrei Ramah b'simulation of Gimel Sif Aleph, Afilu Noigim Megecholim Shari. Even if it's touching the coal, it's mutter. Why? Kivin she'ein tamun bebegadim. Since on top it's not covered, it's not tamun with clothing. So that's where the Machlokes the Mechaber and the Ramah. Could touch the gecholim or not? According to the Ramah, this whole sieve is talking about even if it's touching the gecholim. According to the Mechaber, this sieve is talking about only if it's raised above the gecholim. So now says the Ramah, says the Magen Avraham. So now we spoke about where there's coals and it's not Garav V'Katum. Right, it's not Garav V'Katum, so there's no heter Shehi unless it's Kiddur Chaisa. That is Kiddur Chaisa. But it's a problem of Atmana, even though it's mutter. Ashia, it's asas Atmana. Or, if you're talking about it's Garav V'Katum, and you're leaving it on the coals that are Garav V'Katum, which is mutter, even if it's not a Kiddur Chaisa, still Atmana would be a problem. It's covered with Begadim. Says the Magen Avraham, Yesh Mekaymes, Shebemakom Shemesikin Ha'or, or Bishlo Akaderos, in the places where they make the fires and they put the pots inside. Gorifin Haremet, Gorif is Gorif, they take out the coals. And they put the pot into that oven for tomorrow morning, for Shabbos morning. And they cover it with cold ashes.
You cover the pots.
The pots.
So it's like a Hatmana different.
Right. Here's the problem. What are you doing? You're taking the pot, you're putting it into an oven. The oven was very hot. You took out the coals, fine. You take the pot and you put it into the oven. The oven is hot. The bottom is hot. And what are you doing? You're covering it with aphid, with ashes, which is atmana. So basically what you're doing is, the bottom is Mosef Hevel, and the top around it is Ein Mosef Hevel. The aphid is Ein Mosef Hevel. So it should be Aser. According to the Sif, it should be Aser. How did they go ahead and take their pots and put it into the oven, on top of the oven floor, which is very hot, and cover it with aphid, even though the aphid is not Mosef Hevel? It's still Aser. So how did they do that? Why? One reason. Only if you're doing it for Atmana. They didn't do that for Atmana. They covered with aphid. There are other reasons why they did it. They weren't doing it L'Shem Atmana, and we had before in Siv Beis that if you cover something not for Atmana, it's not awesome. It has to be doing it L'Shem Atmana. That was the heter to cover the schnitzel they put on top of a cholent pot. It's not a problem because you're not doing it for Hatmana. If you're not doing it for Hatmana, it's mutter. That was one reason why it's mutter. V'gam ein roy l'hatem etech hakaka. Therefore, lekel mechesh. Here's a new heter. You can't be matmin it in the karka. It's not possible to do Hatmana into the karka. So the only time we ask that this Hatmana is only when it's possible to be matmin into it. That's this heter. Now this heter is going to be very important. Basically what we're saying over here is, if you put something on top of a flat surface, where it's impossible to be matmin into that, there's no gzeir. There's no issue. Yeah, because it's hard. Yeah, you can't make a goom out of it, you can't make a hole out of it, and put the pot inside.
Okay.
It's not possible to be matmin in it.
I mean, you could if you just put your oven, but...
Yeah,
and that would be according to both the Magen Avraham says that in the name of both the Ramah and...
So let's see, what does the Magen Avraham mean over here? What does the Magen Avraham mean over here? So you can't be matted into it, therefore it's mutter.
But about an oven top.
What do you mean?
Well, if I put my pot on top of an oven top, which is hot,
right, you also can't be matted.
I also can't do it, so
right.
That would be hatmana that we said.
So in Sif Meshon Gimel it said, if you put out Gabi Gecholim, it's also according to the Mechaber. It says Gecholim. How about if our oven tops, our platters which are flat and they're hard, and they can't be matman in it, maybe it's mutter. Maybe it's mutter. That's the setter, right?
That's the rush, okay.
But the Rush didn't say it in that case. The Rush only said it in this case where you matmin with begodim on top of it, and you want to make it into a Mosef Hevel because on the bottom it's hot. And there the Rush said that if it's a flat surface, there's no gzeira. The Rush didn't say it in a case where it's lying on the surface itself. So you have to know if the Rush's heter will apply to the Sfardim. And there's kama v'kama rayos that it won't apply to the Sfardim. Because the Rush only gave his heter, we'll see soon, in a case we're talking about, you put it in a kira, the bottom is hot, you matim begodim on top. There we didn't call it atmana because you can't put it into the kira itself. It's impossible to be matmin in the floor of the kira. We didn't make that gzeira. So in a case where we say we give it a din Mosef Hevel, even though the top is Ein Moisef Hevel, on there the Rosh said that it will be mutter in a case where there's no coals. But in a case where it's lying directly on the hot thing, directly on the stove top, there the Rosh never said his din. There the Rosh never said his din. The pashtus. I will see some riots. Right? So that's why I want to point out this heter. There's two different things we're talking about over here. One case is, according to the Mechaber, it's above the coals, and you matman it with begodim, with clothing. That's this halacha. That's the extra gzeir of atmana. Because it's really ain't a Moisef Hevel. We give it a din like Moisef Hevel. Why? Because you may end up being matman with davar Moisef Hevel. That's only if it's possible to be matman in this thing itself. But in the case where the Mechaber says, when you put it on top of something that's hot, that itself is Moisef Hevel, I don't know if we have this heter of the Rosh. It's two different cases. I'll bring you a raya soon. But Taisus cost with Tam Zel Chud, Veshein Royal Hatam B'Toicha. Taisus writes this heter itself, only this heter, that it can't be Matam B'Toicha, because of the Shabbat Shuvas, the Efer Cham, hot Efer, Ein Moisef Hevel, is not called Moisef Hevel. Elam came Urav B'Gechol. If you have plain hot ashes, it's not called the Moisef Hevel, unless it's mixed together with coals. Because we say for Shumash Afa Matzah L'Mocha B'Toicha K'tzas Checholim, even if you find tomorrow some coals in this ashes, Shori with the Eved, Ayin Sif Aleph, because it's not called hot enough, but the Kiryas Shalonu, our Kiryas Ein Chayma El Machmas Eish, our Kiryas are only hot because of the fire. L'chol Shah Miskarer V'Hoylech. It's constantly getting cold. Aval Gesef Moisef Hevel Me'atmoi. Gefes is Moisef Hevel by itself. Our Kiryas, once you take out the coals, it's only getting colder and colder. It never gets hotter. It may be hot now, but it's on its way down. Therefore, it's called the Ein Moisef Hevel. Another heter. Something that's on its way down is called the Ein Moisef Hevel. Shekin Gefes gives off heat by itself. Therefore, it's called the Moisef Hevel.
So this is like a third reason for the same?
Yeah. There's another reason, because the Kiryas is constantly getting colder.
Even one side of mana would be Isser, even though it's not touching the Chalim, or has to be the full pot?
No, if it's not touching the Chalim,
and it's just one side?
No, it won't be Isser. It has to be fully covered.
It has to be fully covered.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep these two atem here in mind. One heter is because it can't be matman into the kiro, and one heter is because it's constantly getting colder. If it's constantly getting colder, it's not called the Moisef Hevel.
Is there any thought as to what the reason why they covered with the ashes? It wasn't for Admona?
I don't know the reason why. I'm not sure.
So what was the first heter?
So the first heter was you can't be matman into it. It's a hard surface.
Right.
And the second heter is getting colder. According to the second heter, we won't have this heter for sure enough by our platters. The platters are not getting colder. The platters are staying hot the whole time. So if you rely on that second heter, that's not called a tomato because it's getting colder, that heter you won't have by our platters.
If you have a timer though, it's fine.
Yeah. No, a timer won't help.
What's going to colder?
A timer won't help. Because right now it's Moisef Hevel.
You know later on it's going to go down.
That's because something's going to happen. Because something's going to happen. It's not right now. It's a Moisef Hevel. Every time, the cholim, right now you have coals. Now it's a Moisef Hevel. Eventually, it's going to start cooling down. Yeah, eventually it's start cooling down. Now it's a Moisef Hevel.
This is all before Shabbat.
This is all before Shabbos. Yes.
So what if you had a pasta that it was all heated up? Just before Shabbos, you unplugged it.
That's a kira. Yeah, if you have a platter they heat up before Shabbos, and before Shabbos you unplugged it. According to this, even according to the second heter, it's mutter because now it's getting cooler and cooler. So the kira they took out the coals.
So according to the heter that you have to be, you have to be able to be matmin in the object. Yeah. That means that the chashash that they're holding there is that you have to be able to at some point be matmin with the actual object.
Right. Moisef Hevel.
Right.
That means because really this is Ein Moisef Hevel, because the top is Ein Moisef Hevel.
Right.
It's a gzeira that you may be matmin with davar Moisef Hevel. But it has to be this thing you can be matmin into it. Right? But if you're going to say, in the case when the Mechaber holds that you put something at the bottom, it's called Atmana, That's called Hatmana, not Zeru you may be Matmin. That is Hatmana itself. So then you won't have the heter, that the fact that you can't be Matmin into it.
So it can't be going on the Mechaber then.
Right. So that's one of the rights, that the Mechaber, that this heter is not in the case of the Mechaber, where it's on a flat surface that's very hot. That's constantly giving off heat. Okay, let's see the Ramah. We'll wrap everything together once we see the next simon. Haga, Vatmanash Oisim B'Medinas Elu. That's one that we do in our countries. Shematminim B'Tanur. They matmin in the oven. V'Tochen Piatana B'Tit, and they would seal it off with tit, which we had already in the beginning of Reish Nun and Zion. Which we had in the beginning of Reish Nun and Dalet. Right, if you talk the piatana b'tit, you seal it off. So if you remember correctly, then we had a machlokes, the Mechaber and the Ramah. What's the heter? The Mechaber says it's the fact that it's sealed off and it's kosher le'zika. And the wind, if you open it up, the wind will ruin it. The Ramah says the fact that it's sealed by itself is already a heter, because it's a reminder not to go in. And we said the difference would be if it's in a pot. It's in a pot, so according to the Mechaber, once you open it up, there's no kosher le'zika. The wind won't come in and ruin it. According to the Ramah, where even if it's in a pot, the whole heter is that it's sealed, you're not going to open it, so even if it's in a pot, it's mutter. So the Ramah is going to say the same heter would be by Atmana. If you have an issue with Atmana, that was all Shia. How about if I have Atmana? I'm matmin something, and I seal the oven. Is it mutter? So the Ramah is going to say that it's going to be mutter. Because even though Atmana is also no matter what the case is, if it's Mistamach Varalai, whether it's Kedachayt, it makes no difference. But this is a new type of heter. Here the heter is the fact that it's sealed off, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to remember before I do anything. So therefore the Ramah brings down a heter over here also. Hagav Atmana she'oisim v'redinas elu shematmina b'tanur v'tachem pi'atanur b'tit shari it's mutter l'kul yamo v'chumosh is bar le'el simulation dalid Spiro l'kamon same simulation test. The Ramah holds this is mutter no matter what, because once you have tach pi'atanur b'tit, in every case it's mutter. If you look in the Magen Avraham, see if you've cut in your test. Shari l'kul yamo hainu dafka b'rashtida v'mina kitniyes she'maram l'spashal k'mazakos of simulation dalid. You don't even need ticha. This whole din of ticha that's mutter is only in a case where things will get cooked quickly. Then you have to come on to closing it off. But if it's a kiddur chaisa, you don't even have to come on to the fact that you're closing it off. According to the Beis Yosef, who holds that ticha needs also kosher le'zika, so it won't help. Ticha won't work. Shmiring it won't work. In the places where there's no minik to seal it off, so then you can't put into the oven beans that cook up quickly, only if it's Michel ben the Simon by doing, because there it's already mutter like Chananya. And them can kisa gechalim ba'efer unless you do garav v'katum, much chasa simulation of gimel. The Rishal b'tshuvis hichmir miyoid. The Rishal in the shuvas is very machmir, and he holds even toyach batit hatmana won't work. The Ramah just said now that hatmana works with toyach batit. The Rishal says that hatmana does not work. Only shiyah. But once you have hatmana problems, if it's teich batit, it won't help you out. That's what the Rishal holds. Ayin sham, a puk chazi my amadavar. Go look and see what amadavar means. Am is the nation. Dav what they do. And you find this lashon a lot of times in the poskim. Puk chazi my amadavar. What the minig is, and everyone does teich batit, even though it's hatmana, and therefore the Ramah is matter it. By Mashal Kosev says simulation test. By Mashal the Geboidim. By Mordechai Kosev is Avashem Shem test. By test. Ein time David Moshe Hevel. Kizei Shem Yatman Rebetz. Aval Hakam Shak Gecholim Be'en. Lekkel Mechit Shel Yatman Behen Akan L'Shanim V'Gamakam L'Adif Mashiach. So here he says a new word that the Gecholim are hot. there's no chash are going to put into the cholam while it's hot. So we don't go with that, and we hold that there is a chash hatmana. So basically, we have in the Mechlekes of Mechaber the Ramah. The Mechaber says that here it won't work tachbatit because the Mechaber holds you have to have kosher leziku. Also, you don't have that over here, and according to the Ramah, it would work toachbatit. Says the Ramah, "Vayto a mitzvah lahatmin l'Shabbos." It's a mitzvah to be matmin food for Shabbos. Yechiel chamin b'Shabbos. In order to eat chamin b'Shabbos, the Sfaradim have a lashon. They don't call it cholon. Cholon, they call it chamin. And it comes from this lashon. The main thing is to eat chamin Shabbos morning. Whether it's cholon, whether it's eggs, it makes no difference. But it should be a hot food, and the reason is because the tzdukim, they would say they darshan that you're not allowed to have a fire at all on Shabbos. We hold, of course, you're allowed to have a fire on Shabbos. The sevaru eish means you can't light the fire on Shabbos. But if you have a fire on, you're allowed to have hot food Shabbos morning. The tzdukim never had hot food Shabbos morning because they weren't allowed to have a fire on at all on Shabbos. So we, in order to show that we're not from the tzdukim, we make sure we have hot food Shabbos morning.
Cholent also means chamin.
Yeah, cholent is chamin. Oh, cholent means chamin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah?
Why? The French word, cholent.
Oh,
they eat slowly.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
You didn't know that?
You didn't know that? See? You learn things, it's something you do every day. Okay.
It's French?
So mitzvah lahatmin l'Shabbos le'shirich l'Shabbos eat hot food for Shabbos. Kizeh recovered v'oinik Shabbos. V'chol mish ein imamim v'divrei chachamim. Anybody doesn't believe in the words of the chachamim v'oiser achilas chamim b'Shabbos and he asks achilas chamim b'Shabbos. Chashir shem apikoyusu. The chodesh is not apikoyus. Because it's not a good thing not to have cholent.
Couldn't tzdukim have chamin by using hatmana? No.
They wouldn't have hot coals. They wouldn't have anything hot.
Well, they would remove them erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos.
Because it would stay hot till the next morning. It's one of what? Would I guess it
wouldn't stay warm.
I guess it wouldn't stay warm the Shabbos morning. In order to keep it warm the Shabbos morning, you would have to have some type of heat source.
And the sun wouldn't help? The sun?
I guess not. So, in the cloudy days, they wouldn't have it. They didn't have chamin. It's interesting here, let's look at the Magen Avraham first of all. Sifka and Chof.
Proves they weren't Jews. They didn't need cholent.
Yeah. That's where you check if someone's Jewish or not. The Magen wants to see Sifka and Chof a mitzvah lahatmin. Avamisha mazak loyachamin. Someone who hot food is not good, it's not healthy for him. Mutter lechol tzoyin. He's allowed to eat cold. But of course, you have to have hot food Shabbos morning.
Is he quoting that?
Yeah, to the doctor now.
That's
Not to Moshe probably. So it's interesting. The Mishnah over here goes into the whole thing. The reason why it says you have to have chamin Shabbos morning is to show we're not from the tzdukim. The Mishnah says a whole different reason. It says what's going to happen is if you're not going to keep your oven on for Shabbos morning and keep the cholent there cooking overnight, what's going to end up happening is you're going to come Shabbos morning, so you want hot food, and you're going to be over his sudim in order to get the hot food. Therefore, make sure Friday night you set your food up that it should be hot for Shabbos morning. It's a whole different reason it gives. If you look in the Mishnah Sif Katan Mem Tes, it says like this: "V'chol mi u'biymeinu b'avaseinu Rabbim matzu kilkul gadol al yedei elu sheparshin atzman b'shat nefesh." They separate themselves on purpose. The mitzvah achilas chamin b'Shabbos shabal lebesoif al yedei zeh lidei iser. Through that, if they don't set up the food erev Shabbos, they'll end up coming with the iser. Shemitzaven le'ena Yehudi. They tell any Yehudi sheyichemu avuram chamin b'Shabbos. The camp amam yavar they zeh gamma the iser deraisa. It goes through the whole thing. If you have a chance to look at it, it goes through the whole thing. How if you don't set it up Friday night, you'll end up telling a guy to do it and be over on isrum deraisa sometimes yourself. You'll take something that was not cooked and put it in the oven. He has a whole thing why you should be careful with that. So basically what he's saying here is you have to make sure that Friday night, Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos, the food that you want for Shabbos morning is already set to make sure it's going to be hot. Don't rely on making it hot Shabbos morning. Because if you're going to rely on that, you end up doing Dvarim V'Asurim.
So what's bothering these people to start with? They want to separate from what?
They don't prepare Friday night, Erev Shabbos, their food.
It sounds like he's saying something else. He's saying like that they don't want to have hot food.
No, they're not.
The next day they wake up and they say, I want hot food.
But wait a minute. So every week they do the same thing? Every week I don't want hot food, and every week to wake up Shabbos morning I want hot food?
But that's what he says.
No, so I think what he means is...
I don't know like because he's
right.
portion out to understand.
I think what he means is... Shabbos is purposely.
Oh, on purpose.
It says that they're pirates themselves from having hot food, and it seems like they have charazah the next morning.
Right, so I think what it means is that they don't think about it Friday night. They don't set it up Friday night to make sure they have hot food to Shabbos morning.
Very smart people.
Yeah.
That's like money halacha.
Yeah.
Based on someone who forgets from week to week.
So obviously it's not forgetting from week to week. Obviously it's not saying every week. It's saying like, I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was we used to take the city bus to yeshiva. Every morning, a guy would come late so we had seder before davening, and we say the 6:35 bus came early. Every single day, same excuse. Now the 6:35 bus came at 6:33, really. But every day he would come and say the bus came early. Right? I don't know why. The bus comes earlier. You got to realize the bus comes earlier. Same thing, I don't think this person over here every week is saying, I don't want chamin, and then I shout, I want chamin. It means he's not careful enough Friday night before Shabbos to make sure that he has chamin. That's the problem. So the Spiro gives his own reason over it. It's not the reason why the Ramah says you have to have chamin Shabbos morning. The Ramah says you have to have chamin Shabbos morning is because to give the mafkia to exclude from the das hatzdukim. But he says the Spiro brings out another reason also to make sure Friday night you have the hot food, because otherwise Shabbos morning you end up doing Dvarim Ha'isurim.
I heard also that by Pesach that the Chofetz Chaim used to eat pickles also, because of something to do with Stukim.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Why pickle?
It's got to do with chometz.
Chometz, oh yeah?
But used to, the Dafka make pickles.
Oh yeah?
With salt, but not with vinegar.
Hot pickle.
Okay.
Hot pickle.
Okay, so there's another important here. A lot of important things too. I'm not going to have time for everything. If you look in there's a Sha'at scene over here. Sifkat Mem Gimel. The Mr. Brewer brings down over here that if you have a kli rochav on top, a wide kli, and you have the clothing hanging down on the side, it's mutter. So we look in the Mishnah Berurah first of all. Sifkat Mem Beis Rochav Huadin Kishenoisen Al Pi Hakadero Daf Rochav Be'inyin Shabegodim Shemechasem Elmayla Layigo B'Tzidei Hakadero. They hang down and they don't touch the sides of the pot. Now in the Sha'at Sifkat Mem Gimel it says Huadin Imamida Beguma Shenasas Ala Taner. You put it in a hole. They have like a little ditch on top of the taner. Oy B'Toich HaKochlin. Kochlin is the coals. You take the pot and you put it in the coals. It shouldn't be exact, the size of the pot. Like the size of the pot, levad. If you fit it in exactly, it's called hatmana. Should have a little bit of ear between the pot and the walls of the gumo. For us, then they cover it with clothing. So they use this Sha'at scene a lot for the crock pots today. Basically what he's saying is if the pot fits in exactly, there's no air space, that's called hatmana. If you have air space, it's not called hatmana. So what does it mean? How much air space do you have to have? Fits in exactly? I mean, obviously there's a drop of space.
Well, this is only going to be according to the mechaber, right?
No.
Or is this going to be
this even according to the Ramah.
Why?
Because you're sticking it in.
But your whole top of the...
Oh, we'll get that in a second. The top is open, right. No, but they're covering the top with begod afterwards. You're right. The crack pot, what happened to the crack pot is the top is not mutman. Fine. But let's say you're covering the top of the crack pot. let's say covered with a towel. Let's say that's the case.
Okay, so then
we'll get to the fact that the whole thing is not mutman in a second. But here he's saying if you have a little airspace in between the pot and the heating element, it's not called hatmana. So the crack pot that you fit straight in, and there's a drop of airspace just that the pot should be able to get in, that's not called airspace. It's not called airspace, because when you put the kachlan also, there was a drop of, you had to fit the pot in, it wasn't exact. Because if it was exact, you wouldn't fit the pot in. So to have just a drop of airspace in order to fit the pot in, that's not called airspace. You have to have more airspace than you usually have between the pot and the heating element. Because some people lift up the crack pot, and there's more airspace than between the pot and the heating element. But that's what the Sharatzian says.
But they're doing that for a different reason.
Why?
So people who put in a can underneath, that's because they want to raise the bottom one, that it should be above.
What's the matter with it being above?
It's a big difference, because if you want to say, it's a difference between saying that now you've undone a partial. No, if you put the pot within inside the element and it's completely even, right? Then even if you have a lid on top, you may still say that it's not nikar.
And it's called hatmana.
And it's called a hatmana.
Yeah.
So by lifting it up,
that's one of the reasons
but
why.
it's a different nikuda. You're addressing a different issue. You're addressing the issue partial versus non. Versus here you're
talking about it's two different things. There's two different things. It's two different questions of what's called hatmana. Is a crack pot that you put in, so now the top is open, so it's not called hatmana now, because the top is open, it has to be fully covered the pot, I don't know if it to be called hatmana or not.
But the heat is key.
There's no lid on top. Is that what you're saying?
There's a lid. There's a lid to the pot. But the pot has to be mutman. You have to have the pot covered. The lid is part of the pot. No, but the lid is part of the pot.
Because it's all
hatmana pashas means you have a pot, and the pot is mutman. If you have a lid of a pot that's not covered, the top of the pot is not covered, the lid is not going to make hatmana, because the lid is part of the pot. The lid is part of the pot.
It's not covered by the element. When the lid goes on top of the crock pot,
it is part of the pot.
It's the pot. There's nothing that is enveloping it.
Like a towel, something with the.
That's the problem. If you leave towels out of it, then it is problems. But
the question is what's called hatmana. That's the whole thing has to be covered. Not a lot of acharim that say that if most of the pot is covered, the davar ha'moisef hevel, that's the way they call hatmana. There's the mechaber holds that if it's lying on a pot, on a davar ha'moisef hevel, that's called hatmana. The Ramah says that's mutter. So the Ramah says what? Everything is mutter till the pot is fully covered with moisef hevel? Or if it goes up the size a little bit, then it's already called hatmana. Right? The way we learn Torah, the mechaber and the Ramah, the total extremes. The mechaber held that if the bottom is moisef hevel, it's hatmana. And the mechaber holds, the Ramah holds, that if everything is covered, then it's not called hatmana b'moisef hevel. So I would say no. That if the pot comes up on the sides a little bit, up to covers most of the pot, that's already called hatmana.
So it has to be in the majority then.
Right. If the majority is covered, and there's a dik in the Lashon Mishnah Berurah. If you look at the Mishnah Berurah over here, the end of Sifkat Mem Gimel, all the way to the end of Sifkat Mem Gimel, V'em Kaifa Kli Rachav, the last line, you see it after a dot. Sifkat Mem Gimel, right before Sifkat Mem Daled, like one line up. V'em Kaifa Kli Rachav, I should nice and allow Daf Rachav, U'mechasa b'vgadim il-mayla mutter. If you put a wide kli on top of it, the cover with v'gadim is mutter. Av shemamidai ad chetziav b'chol. Even though you put the pot up to half in sand, it's mutter. It's mashma, if you put it more than half in the sand, then it's become masa. Rosh HaMishmar is mashma. If you're going to do it more than half, it's going to become masa. Why is it asa? It's not Tomer on top. It's mashma for the Mishnah Berurah that if it's more than half mutmin, then it's already asa. It's already called Tzmana V'Davar HaMoisef Hevel. Ramosha has a different chumrah. Ramosha holds that if...
So according to the Mishnah Berurah, this would only be an issue, again...
Moisef Hevel.
This would be putting clothing on top.
No, the clothing on top, it's away from the pot, it's mutter. It's not called atmana.
No, but if you put it directly on, this is.
No, they're saying the clothing is not directly on. So the clothing is away.
Oh, this is not the fire. This is the
chayil.
This is the
sand. Sand's the most hevel. If you put the clothing away from the pot, it's mutter, says the Mishnah. But until it's half covered in sand, and if it's half covered in sand, why is it also? Yeah, the clothing is mutter. The clothing is far away from the pot. Why is it also? It's mashav in the Mishnah Berurah. The ad chetzi b'chol means once it's covered more than half in davar ha'mais of hevel, it's already an issue.
Even according to the Ramah.
Even according to the Ramah. Right. Where you can have the Mishnah Berurah. That means if before this Mishnah Berurah, you go like the Ramah, crack pots are not an issue at all. Because on top it's open. It's not fully mutmim, davar ha'mais of hevel, so why should it be an issue b'chol? When you see this Mishnah Berurah, it makes a big issue with the crack pots.
Why? I'm not following.
He says if you put clothing on top, right, and it's a wide thing, and the clothing hang down on the side away from the pot,
right,
it's mutter. When's it mutter? Even if you put till half of it in sand,
which is Mosif Hevel.
Which is Mosif Hevel. And if you put half of it in sand, why is it also? Let's say you put 3/4 in sand. Why does it become also? Why is it ad chetzi b'chol?
But that's because the top here is covered.
But it's covered. It's far away. The begodim are away. The begodim are away. The begodim mean nothing away. It's as if there's no begodim here.
Yeah.
Because they're away from the pot. The perfectly rachos, so the clothing are away from the pot as if there is no clothing here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, mutter if you put ad chetzi b'chol. And when it's chetzi b'chol, what's the problem?
So in that light, how does lifting up the crock pot help?
Lifting up the crock pot, what happens is you put airspace in between the pot and the walls.
Like more than it's built in.
Right.
So if you put like a blob of tin foil underneath it,
right,
so like put your crock pot inside certain, like at a little bit of an angle, so there's
the airspace, right?
Airspace, it's not really sealed in.
So according to the Ramah, it's definitely easier. Because what you're doing is the bottom is lifted up, so even airspace in the bottom, according to the Ramah, is okay. According to the Mechaber, airspace in the bottom may not be okay.
Why? It's not
but it's still called atmana.
According to Mechaber, it would have to be lifted up completely.
Right.
Not just one side of it. No.
Right. So usually you put the balls and it's lifted up. It lifts up the whole thing.
Depends where you get the ball. Right?
Yeah.
With you two on each side.
Lifts up the whole thing, right?
Then it's not
Gaban Gecholim.
Why would the Mechaber then still?
Because the Mechaber holds it's not Gaban Gecholim. There's still a problem of atmana. If you matim with Gadim, the case of the Mechaber is it's above the Gecholim, and you matim with Gadim on top.
Right.
But the bottom is away from the Gecholim. So you see, that's called atmana according to the Mechaber.
Right.
According to the Ramah, it could be that case is not atmana b'chlal. Why? Because the bottom is lifted away from the coals.
Right. Right. So so with the crock pot then, if it's above the gecholim, according to Mechaber, it's only an issue of atmana if it's covered on top with the
correct. Right. Well, it's covered on top.
And if you do that instead of the afracha, then you have no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, if we do the afracha, that's the same with the samovars. They have the samovars. They tell people like a sleeve on top of them. And that's a problem because the bottom is Mosif Hevel, it's giving off heat, and those sleeves you put on top is clothing, is begodim. And now it's the bottom is Mosif Hevel, top has begodim. That's regular. That's sivches. That's a perfect sivches.
Similar problem if you have those you buy those large pieces of cloth that are specifically designed to put over your food that's on a blech.
For sure.
Right? So if you take that thing and you have your hot blech, even if it's bar katum,
doesn't make a difference. If it's Mosif Hevel,
the food's on an upside down pan already.
Doesn't make a difference.
Take that thing and cover it, and it's completely sealing off in all directions.
Right.
You don't have to.
Right. Unless there's airspace between the pot and the clothing. Because the airspace, if it's bigger than the food and the pots, then it's okay. A and B. There you may have the heter of Taisvis. Since it can't be matman in the thing, so the Master Mishmur says we're not samech on the heter. Mishmur says we're not samech on the heter that if you matman inside it. So therefore you shouldn't do it. So let's see simulation of ches. Shamuter lahafsim erev Shabbos davar kar al kdei rechama. B'sif echad. Says the Mechaber, Muter la'niach b'yadyoim kli sheyesh bo davar kar. You're allowed to put b'yadyoim kli that has something cold. Agabe kdei rechama. On top of a hot pot. She'ein zeh k'toimim b'davar ha'moisav hevel. That's not called Talmud b'davar ha'moisav hevel. Now what does this mean? What's Siman Reish Leches talking about? So if you say Siman Reish Leches is a regular Atmana Dikadin, Mechaber says that you put it on Gecholim, it's called Atmana. So here I didn't put it on the cold, I put it on a hot pot. So according to the Mechaber, you put on anything hot, it's called Talmud b'davar ha'moisav hevel, it's awesome. Says the Mechaber here, it's not called Talmud b'davar ha'moisav hevel, and it's mutter. Question is why? Why is this case mutter? According to the Mechaber, anytime you put a pot on a moisav hevel, right away it's called awesome. So why is this case mutter? Why is this case mutter? This is going to be the heter for the Sfardim for blacks. Right? So if you're going to say the Mechaber means, wait a minute, here it's mutter because it's not cold. It's not gecholim. Only gecholim you ask because you can put it into it. But if it's flat, a hard surface, it's mutter. Then the Sfardim have no problems because all our platters and everything is not coals.
That's like the Rosh.
Like the Rosh. If the Beis Meir says that chiluk, the Beis Meir says the Mechaber's issue is only when it's on top of coals, where you can put matman in the coals itself. But if it's on a flat surface, says the Beis Meir, the Mechaber would never call that atmana, and it's mutter. So according to Beis Meir, the Sfardim have no issues with putting it on top of a blech.
So this is like Tosus then?
Correct.
He interprets it the way
Correct.
Understands it.
That's the way Beis Meir interprets it.
Right.
So the whole Mechaber Reish Gimel is a secluded case of coals. Most of the Achronim argue in the Beis Meir. Most of the Achronim argue in the Beis Meir. They don't go with that teretz. And I say a different teretz over here because the Beis Yosef over here says why is it mutter? Why is it mutter in this case? Says the Beis Yosef because the pot is getting colder and colder. That means the pot's not on the fire. It doesn't say where the pot is. Doesn't say it says mutter lahatmin mutter lanicha by dem kli sheyesh by davar kar agabi kedei rechama she'ein zeh k'tayim davar moisav hevel. Where's that kedei rechama? Is it on the fire or is it off the fire?
It doesn't matter.
So the Beis Yosef says the reason why it's mutter because the pot is getting colder. That means the pot is off the fire. The pot is off the fire. So if that's the case, you see the Beis Yosef is only matter in the case where it's getting colder. So then our blacks.
How can you matter was work?
Yeah, so our blacks won't work. So back to the kasha. Back to the kasha. But the truth is that the Achronim learned this case, and that's Pashas Mashma from the Beis Yosef. That's where the Biur Halacha learns this case. We're not talking about over here a case of where you put on top of a pot without any clothing on top. It's talking about this siman is the hemshech of siman Reish and Zion, and there are clothing on top of the pot. There are clothing on top of the pot. There the Beis Yosef has to come out the head because it's getting colder and colder. And the Biur Halacha says the Biur Halacha all the way at the end of Simulation of Ches. If you look at the Biur Halacha, the end of Simulation of Ches is page Lamed in the Mishnah Berurah. It says V'dah. It's like 5 lines up. There's a dot. It says V'dah. V'dah the Hacha Kasa V'seis V'tam the Miskaren. For Shekasavim Mishnah Berurah El B'Simulation of Zion. Echriya V'seis V'atzmoy. The Inyan Hamada Al Gabi Kira K'tumo. The Mikri Moisav Hevel. It's called Moisav Hevel. Before we said that the Skar Machmas Atzmai B'Seis was Machmir, would like Rashi. So why over here is it Mekel? Lakarchach the Sham Chamira Machmas Hachoim Hakira Gadol Ma'od. Over there, the heat of the kira is very, very strong. Mashiach, the heat of a pot is not as hot as a kira, and therefore here the B'Seis will be matter when when you have covered with clothing, the Beisayis will be matter. So here is a whole new reason why the Beisayis has to come onto this heter, that it's getting cooler. Because here's another issue. Besides the fact that it's on a davar ha'mosif hevel, it's covered with clothing. That's more chomer. The fact that it's covered with clothing, it's more chomer. Here we're going to say it's mutter, even though it's on a davar ha'mosif hevel, because it's a skarer v'hoilach. And so that's only when there's clothing on top of it. But when there's no clothing on top of it, maybe there's another heter why you're allowed to put it on top of a kler. Is that clear?
Where I'm having trouble is how can the base mirror understand the mechaber the way he does when the base Yosef himself says...
That's a good question. It's a very good question. That's why I'm arguing this man. That's why they argue in the Bismillah. That's one of the chashas they have in the Bismillah. But the truth is, the Bismillah could be talking about in a case where there's no begadim.
Whereas the others have to be in.
Right. The Beisayis said this case is a skar of oilach in a case where there's clothing on top of it. Where there's no clothing on top of it, it could be enough to come onto that heter of the skar. I'm bringing you a raya. The raya that I'm trying to bring is that Simon Shinyut Ches, it says, and we had it in Rishon Gimel also, the Mechaber holds, you're allowed to put something on top of a pot that's on the fire. You're allowed to put something on top of a pot that's on the fire. How can you do that? The pot that's on the fire is not maskar of a hoilach. Right. It's not getting cooler. It's on the fire. It's staying hot. So how can you put it on top of a pot that's on top of the fire? Why isn't that atmana? It doesn't say you lifted it above it. You put it directly on top of the pot that's on the fire. That pot is moisef hevel. It's not maskar of a hoilach. So that's the raya that I'm trying to bring, that this whole Beisayis over here, Miskar v'hoilach, is only talking about a case where there's clothing on top of it. You have to come onto it. But to put it on a davar ha'mosif hevel, that the Mechaber in Rishon Gimel holds is called atmana, even though it's just lying on top of a mosif hevel, there must be a different reason why it's mutter. Because in Shinyat Ches it says you're allowed to put it on top of a pot that's on the fire.
When we had that before, wasn't that al shahiyah that you could do that?
Shahiyah, you could do it, but what happened to Atmana? According to Mechaber, what happened to Atmana in that case?
Right.
So says the Tila David, another Achronim, that on top of a pot is not derech Atmana. Therefore it's mutter. On top of a pot you're allowed to put it, because you're not matmin on a pot. In coals you're matmin, on a fire you're matmin. On top of a pot is not derech Atmana.
That's kind of like the base mayor.
So the Beismeiah says it's only by gecholim, not by anything else. The Til David says it's only on top of a pot that it's mutter. The difference would be, according to Til David, it won't be mutter on a blach.
Right, okay.
It wouldn't be mutter on a blach.
That would be derech hatmana.
That would be derech hatmana. That would be derech hatmana. Right?
In Rishon Gimel, are we talking? It's not gar v'kasim according to the Mechaber.
Rishon Gimel, it's not gar v'kasim. It doesn't make a difference if it's gar v'kasim, because if it's moisef hevel, it makes no difference if it's gar v'kasim or not.
But if it's moisef hevel, according to what we just said, if it's getting colder, gar v'kasim is going to be getting colder. Or not? We don't say that.
Yeah, gar v'kasim is getting colder, right?
Right. So in that case, we would have a heter.
Right.
According to the Mechaber.
Right, and that's not. If it's getting colder, you have a heter. Right. Let's make a quick sikkum of what happened here today. A lot of information here. So a quick sikkum of what happened here. So basically, we'll start from the end. Right? The Mechaber says in Rishon Gimel that is, if you put on something that's moisef hevel, it's also even though it's not mutman on the sides. That's talking about the cholim. Here we see that if you put on top of a pot, it's mutter miskar v'hoilach. It gets cooler. So for sure, something that gets cooler is not a problem. The Mechaber in Shinyat Ches says you're allowed to put it on a pot that's on the fire also, and there's not miskar v'hoilach. So there has to be a different heter for the Mechaber when you're allowed to put it on something that's a mosif hevel. There are machlokes Til David and the Beismeiah. Til David says a pot is mutter. The Beismeiah says only the chalim is also. So according to the Beismeiah, the Sfardim have a heter on the elements and on the kira they have a heter. Now I'll tell you a different heter for the Sfardim.
On a stovetop.
On a stovetop.
They can put, and on the blech they can put.
And a blech according to the Beismeiah. Another heter they give for the Sfardim is that the pot is Miskarav Hoylech. Another heter to give for the Sfardim is that the pot itself is Miskarav Hoylech. If not for the heat source that's heating it up, it itself will become cooler. The pot itself. I'm trying to give you a cooler, Jonathan.
I know, but I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a shver cooler.
If not for the heat source?
If not for the heat source, that means the pot is not the heat source itself. There's something heating up the pot. Only if it's the heat source itself is there a problem of atmana. But if it's something heating it up, for example a blech, which is being heated up by the fire, so the blech itself is not a moisef hevel. The blech itself is a miskarav hoylech. I'm asking. But that's...
Everything is like that.
Yeah, but you have to find a heter for this. As far as the Lamaisa, they put it on the platters. There has to be a heter. They give a different heter because the elements are under it and there's a little airspace in between, so it's not called atmana. That's very good for the platters.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of airspace between the element and the metal piece, maybe.
Yeah.
But on the blech, you don't have such a heter.
That's what I have whole months of slichas.
Right.
Only kidding.
And then we had that atmana on the bottom, moisef hevel, on top with begodush ain't moisef hevel. We had a heter that if it's not fully covered, it's mutter. And the crack parts, the shaila is what's called atmana. I didn't speak out of Moshe's chumrah. The Moshe has a chumrah of atmana that we don't look at the pot. We look at the food. We look at where the food is. Atmana, the whole thing has to be a mutmin. But what does it mean the whole thing? If the atmana comes up past the level of the food, that's why they call that the food is mutmin. Even though the pot continues higher, it's still called atmana. That's a Moshe's chumrah of atmana. It'll be a big chumrah because this happens all the time. You have the baby bottles, right? Yeah. You want to warm a baby bottle of Shabbos and put it into hot water. So people say it's mutter because the top is open and it's not fully mutman. But according to the Moshe, if the formula is fully in the hot water, which usually happens, then it's a problem with man.
Doesn't apply to crockpot.
So crockpot also. A crockpot, if it comes up, what's the head? Some people say head of a crockpot, the top is uncovered. According to the Moshe, you won't have the heter.
Right.
Because as long as it goes past the level of the food, then it's very called a atmana.
Wow. But Moshe is matter crockpot.
For other reasons.
How does he get that?
He holds it's not called atmana b'chlal.
Right.
The Moshe hold a crockpot is not called atmana b'chlal.
Right.
It's not atmana at all. The whole thing is not called atmana.